Welcome back to the Paperstac podcast. My name is Rick Allen. This is Brett Berkey, and we have one lined up for you today. It's good. I'm excited about this because this is something I've been doing this forever, and still there's questions that pop into my head. People actually ask me questions. I'm like, look, I'm not the expert on this, but I know the experts on this.
Yep, we got the experts on this. That was actually really cool because, a lot of people do ask about the topic of partials, and I usually just direct them to Fred and Tracy for their partial course. But
So we're going to welcome to the show Fred and Tracy Rewey. How you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We love talking about partials, so thanks for having us.
It's really cool because, we're doing this obviously via the internet, and they're literally 30 minutes to the west of
I was
us.
just thinking that. I'm like, this is probably the closest I've ever been on a Zoom call. I only moved to work where you're like on opposite sides in a Starbucks.
Yeah, I think next time we'll do it in person because they're on the lake, so we should go to their lake house and just, hang out with them on the lake.
Yeah.
Right? We can do that. Just go out on the boat. I think I get internet in the first 50 yards. So
There you go. Maybe make some manly BLTs. Fred, I know you're a bacon fan. Who isn't?
I've heard of bacon.
I've heard of it. I've heard it. You guys definitely have been like the topic, and I've known you guys for quite a while since I started with Note School. But I'd love to start with kind of diving into your history. How did you guys get into the note space? I know you guys are veterans in the space, back to the days. I don't want to spoil it. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and how you wound up doing what you're doing today.
I kind of feel like that was a polite way of saying we're really old. I mean, I feel like I was around. You guys have been around. Well, I mean, it was Dinosaurs was our original paperwork we were working with. No, so we both have been in the industry for over 30 years. We both started kind of separately. I started actually out buying notes from a 500 square foot apartment and learned from a gentleman by the name of John Richards in the 90s, and eventually ended up working at the institution that was the largest buyer of notes where Tracy was working. And then we left there around 2000 or 97, and started our own company. So we've both been in this industry like over 30 years each. Yeah, you came up through there on the institutional side.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town. I went to the big city, and I went to work for someone that had been buying notes since the 1950s.
Oh, wow.
So they've been around. This was in 1988 that I started working with them. So had a great benefit of learning from their knowledge, and they were an institutional buyer. They used insurance funds and debentures to buy notes, and so we bought in all 50 states. I really had a closing and title background, and then I got into the number side and the sales and the marketing and the due diligence. So we love partials. They did partials there, and so that we've taken that. When we started our own company, we just kept doing that. Interestingly enough, Fred and I met through the note industry as well. So we have a lot of love for notes. If it wasn't for notes, we wouldn't be financially independent, and we probably wouldn't be married.
That's cool. That's a cool story.
That's great. And so,
Actually, yeah, pretty safe.
and so you guys started your own company. You said in the late 90s. Well, I graduated high school in 98.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Well, the one thing that we loved our job at the corporation. We both were getting paid very, very well. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of latitude to do what we wanted to do. The one thing we couldn't really do was purchase notes for ourselves because it was a little bit of a conflict of interest.
Yes.
And so from a lifestyle standpoint, we knew notes that could get us long-term, short-term. We knew it was, you're both leaving very, good paying jobs. But we knew long-term it had the flexibility. We wanted to be at home with our daughter when she came up from school. We wanted to travel. I mean, the one thing we love about this industry is we've probably been out of the country since then, 50 times, 100 times. And we've actually run our business from out of the country in, Italy or Nicaragua or Guatemala. So we've actually done that as long as we have internet now, especially, post 2000 when the internet got more prevalent everywhere. Yeah, so it was really a lifestyle decision for us.
That's cool.
That's interesting that you learned the business. You were in it working that business, and you're like, man, I want to buy notes. I can't buy notes because there's this conflict of interest here. I can do this without it, versus a lot of people who are coming into this are actually kind of the opposite. They have their other business and they're learning about their notes. They can keep that W-2 job and sort of use that to start building it slowly as they go. You guys were just like, hey man, it's such a good industry. It's such a good opportunity. I'm diving in, taking away that W-2 job, and we're gonna make it work. That's awesome.
I mean, as well as on my side, I mean, I was buying notes and brokering notes. So I came from that when I lived in California. So when the opportunity came to go work with Met, the only thing I didn't know was, what does the investor do once they purchase the note? So I didn't know that side of it. So for me, that was kind of a little bit strategic, going, well, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to go learn what they do on their side. And then, once I got up all on that for, $10 billion worth of notes later, whatever it was, we're just like, well, let's go do it ourselves.
And it's funny, while Fred came from that angle, I was buying real estate. I was a landlord instead of a lien lord because we could buy and sell real estate while we worked at an institution. And so I feel all the landlord's pain, and I think that this is a wonderful transition to move to notes, because you still have an asset, a note, backed by real estate, something you're just on the other side of the cash register. Instead of paying the payments and paying the interest, now you're on the side that receives the payments and receives the interest. So we like being on this side of it. We've been on both sides of it. And it just depends on where you're at in your life, but this is the side we definitely like now.
So I want to get into what is a partial, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't understand it. But before we get there real quick, so you guys, once you got your business, you guys have an education piece to what you're doing now, to where you're kind of giving back to people and saying, look, we've 30 plus years in this business. We know a couple things because we've seen a couple things, and you're provided a platform, which I think is fantastic, what you guys have. Can you go into a little bit about that and what the education that you guys have? Because I think it's really invaluable what you're offering.
So I guess it was about 6 years ago now. We always had people that asked if we would mentor them or whatever like that, and it really wasn't what we want to do. We didn't really want to partner with people as much, but we did want to give back somehow. We both felt really strongly about that. So initially we had done it with our website over the years and wrote lots of articles and shared. And then we just decided to do a membership, and we only open up the doors twice a year. It's not a hard sale. It's only $97 a month. It's always been $97 a month. You can stay as long as you want. You can leave. Whatever. We have a good number of members. Like I said, we open up the doors twice, and they get everything we've created. So we have 4 going on 5 master classes. We have deep dives into calculator, or we have an entire master class just on partials, what we're going to talk about today. And we also provide, in addition to webinars we do all the time, we have a help desk where they can contact us. So,
yeah, we end up doing a lot of deal review and helping people due diligence. Our next masterclass coming up in September is going to be just on due diligence too.
Yeah, it's literally in 2 weeks. Yeah.
So
that's cool.
We do love and enjoy that. I think the reason that we started it, as I was like, I can't believe people aren't telling them this, or how come they're telling them that, and Fred's like, well, if you're all worked up about it, why don't you do something about it? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't think you really want to do it, so. Yeah.
So what we did about it was we started putting our knowledge into videos and trainings and manuals and checklists, and I'm super glad we did it. It's been very rewarding.
Yeah, there's been we added up because like I said, we open up the doors in the spring and we open up the doors in the fall, and then we close the doors. You can't get into the membership. And so when we do 2 member webinars every month, and the other day it was we're over 180 of them we've done, and they're deep dive. I mean, you're going to see a piece of it when we do the PowerPoint today, but I mean, they're all deep dive. They're not just kind of general, just hanging out. So
I can attest to that.
I'm like, I don't know how we're going to talk about notes for so many years, and we still are. There's people always have questions about something.
Sure. Welcome. With the deep dive stuff, I will say that I have the partial course, and I will say it is very, very thorough. You guys, you didn't leave one rock unturned. It's really good.
Did you find that did you guys have different strengths that kind of just really symbiotically work together? Is there some overlap? I'm sure there's some overlap there, but was it she knew the lien lord side, the landlord side, the due diligence side, it sounds like, and then you were look, I really had the brokering and making the deals happen. Was there that sort of relationship there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, to work with your spouse is interesting, and it's
yeah.
We learned 2 things early. One was early in our marriage. We learned on a closet organizer that someone has to take the lead. So even if we both have the ability to do it, we were building a closet organizer, and Tracy's very much the measure this with a tape measure, and it says you're supposed to be 18 inches here. She'll measure it. I'm just like, yeah, that looks close enough. And then, and the thing is, I'll be right. She'll go behind me and she'll measure. Go, God dang it, he's exactly right.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we learned someone had to be the lead. But yeah, we definitely have different strengths when it's a non-overlapping situation. Tracy is way more of the paperwork, closing element. Even from the very beginning, I had hired somebody to close my my files. I'm not going to deep dive into documents. It's just not my thing. I just start after the first couple paragraphs. I'm checking out mentally. I'm more of the marketing creative side of that. We both are on pricing. We both love numbers. We both love the numbers. We both love the structuring of the deals. But I would say she's more closing aspect of it, and I would be more front end aspect of it, I guess. And we both have the ability to do a lot of the different things.
I'm sure, yeah, but
she'll bear me into that.
Put your aces in your places and let the business run. I'm really, I love my wife to death, best friends. But the kudos to you guys, because I see you outside of work, and it's like, man, I don't know if I could do working with my spouse. There would need to be some separation there, but you made it work, and you got a really healthy relationship, from whatever I can see.
Well, we have separate offices.
We have. I know it's doing okay until I watch one of these webinars in advance, and she puts up like some sort of like help me like post-it note. When I see that, I know that things have gone wrong.
So that's good. So let's dive into the world of partials. I mean, people are here and they have a background in you guys. Let's show us the world of partials. Explain it to people. Let's get on the same page so we really know what everybody's talking about. Can you walk us through that?
Sure.
So these are some information we shared from our Lunch and Learn series. And just to start off, this is information that we've used and applied, but we're not attorneys or tax advisors. We definitely always recommend people use those professionals. But we'd like to start off with a deal and build upon it. So if we've got a deal, we've got a real live note here, let's talk about the different ways that we can buy a seller finance note. And we can show how to buy all of it, buy part of it, and split it out. So we like to start at a foundation and just show a real life example.
Yeah, so this property was a sale price of $91,900. They had put a $5,000 down payment, which made the note amount $86,900. And they wrote the note at 9.5%. So that made the payment about $800.29 a month. So the term of that, the fully amortized, was 249 months. And when we saw it, some of the payments had already been made. So there were 176 payments remaining with an unpaid balance of $75,834. And that put it right around an 83% loan to value.
And this was available for sale for $68,430.
Was it on Paperstac?
This was on a note listing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and the discount was $7,404. And the investment to value, when you take what we're investing divided by the value of the property, was 74.5. So it was a well-protected note, good seasoning, good ITV, good face rate, all around good little note for an IRA. So what can you do with this note? Well, you could refer the note and make a referral fee. Somebody else buys it. You could buy the note and make the interest income. You could buy a partial, which we're going to talk about definitely today. And then our very, very favorite strategy is you could buy a full and you could sell a partial, get clean, and keep some money on the back end. So to build on all of that information, let's just kind of look what would happen if you referred that note.
Yeah, so if you refer to note, this is usually where a lot of people start out. And we recommend this a lot of times with either I know I started this way because I didn't have enough money to buy notes, or B, it's a note that you don't want. You're like, it doesn't fit what you normally do. So you just refer this on to somebody else. It's also good even when you're just starting out and you're like, you want to start on somebody, do a couple deals under someone else's money and see the process. But basically the way it works is you're just going to get a referral fee. So you're going to get an offer from somebody. They offer, say, $70,000. You go ahead and pay $68,430 for it. So you're going to get a $1,500 fee. The average fee is about 3 to 6%. Look, you're not going to get wealthy on referral deals. But if you're doing deals yourself and you refer some out here and there, never think that $1,500 is not a lot of money. Never pass up on that. If all you've got to do is, hand off some names and fill out a little bit of paperwork. So the first way to do it is to refer a note. That's one way.
I just caution people, if you're referring a deal, to always be upfront and honest about it to both sides of it. So just make sure you're bringing something unique to the table. But most people that are watching this, I know that work with Paperstac, they're usually buying the note. And so in this case, if we bought a note that had a $75,834 balance and we paid $68,430, we have a nice dollar discount of $7,400. Now, because we're paying less than the unpaid principal balance, we get to earn more over time than the face rate. So the note, the amount the borrower, the payer is paying is 9.5. But because we paid less than the full unprincipled or unpaid principal balance, the UPB, we actually get a yield rate of 11.36 over time. And so this is where a lot of note investors, love buying notes, because if they do pay off early, they get an even larger return. Wow. So that's a pretty straightforward. Yeah, go ahead. What did you say?
Oh, I'm just saying, wow, this is good. It was good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, basically, I mean, look, everybody's asking, well, what's the discount and stuff like that. Discount is the difference between how much I want to earn on my money and how much they're getting paid on the note. And we always have some sort of discount in there, and that's why we're paying the same money, or we're paying a sum of money for the same cash flow that never changes. So let's talk about partials.
Because that was a full deal. Both those were like, it had the 176 payments remaining. We bought all 176. So now we're going to talk about partials. How is that different than what we talked about?
Yeah, partials have been around for a long time, and this is a great way to get into a note that you maybe don't want to buy the whole thing, or there are a lot, whatever reason. So the full purchase is you're buying the whole thing. You're buying all of the remaining payments. So if there's 178 payments left, you're buying all 178. A partial is a little bit different. You don't have to buy the whole thing.
So for a partial, you're buying the right to receive an amount equal to a certain number of payments. And really, in simple terms, if there's a 30-year left, maybe you want to buy 15 years. Now, there's going to be a full assignment and a full endorsement typically, but you have the right to control that note while you get payments. And then when you get your payments, that goes back to the original note holder. So how would that look to buy partial on this deal?
So what we could do is we could buy the right to receive the next 96 payments out of the 176 that are remaining. Now, the reason partials are so powerful is that because of the time value of money, we know money, payments way out in the future aren't worth as much. So we're able to do some really cool things by doing the upfront payments, which in addition to lowering our exposure into this note or into this property, we can also keep some money in the seller's hands. So if we buy the next 96 payments, after those payments go by, we'll give them back to the note. They can sell us another 96 whatever they want. We'll earn 13% yield and pay $47,615. So as I said, once we collect the 96 payments, we reassign the note back to them. Now here's the really cool part. The balance to the seller, if the note pays according to plan, when we give them the note back, they're going to be owed $47,249. So the seller is immediately adding both those up, and it's over $90,000. They're going, wow, this is a better way to go.
Yeah, and we just earned a higher yield because we calculated it out that way. And we also are protected investment to value. So the seller wins, we win. We love partials for that exact reason, because they get money now and they get money later.
Yeah, and someone might be thinking, well, so how do you decide? Like, how many payments do you buy, or what yield do you want to make? Well, that's entirely up to you, but I can tell you what one of the things that is a big factor is how much money they need. Because if they need $60,000 for something big and I offer them 47, that doesn't fill the need. If it turns out I hear they need $40,000 to buy a boat or something like that, and they go, well, you know what, I've got a solution for you. Why don't you not sell the whole thing and take a bigger discount? Why don't you just sell the next 96 payments? I'll give you $47,000 now, and then after the 96 payments go by, you get the note back with the balance owed of $47,000. So what dictates how much we pay or what size the partial is, what size of the piece of the pie we take, is very much indicative on why they're selling, why they need the money.
Yeah, so very, very powerful strategy. So that would just be buying a partial. And now we can talk about how you buy a full and sell a partial. But before we get to that, do you guys have any questions or input on that piece?
Not yet. This is really good.
Question. I would always have questions about, like, okay, or people are asked, well, what happens if they stop paying? Or who makes sure that this gets reassigned back to me if I'm the seller? How do I know that I'm going to get that back and you're not going to hold it? And I tell people, I would assume it's all in the contracts, but you have a piece.
Yeah, that's a very good question. The one we get a lot too, and you're exactly right. It's all in the documentation. The way that you can also protect everyone, in addition to the documentation, is to use a third-party servicer. Mm-hmm. And that third-party servicer will collect the payments and disperse them, and they will keep track of the full balance and also the partial balance that the investor buys. And so when that investor is paid off, then they know that all of that has to get assigned back over and where the payments go. So I think that's usually what makes people feel the most comfortable, is to have that third party, or you could have an attorney hold it if it made everyone feel better as well. But that's a really good question, because we've had back-ends of partials where companies sold and we had to track them down. And when they were with that third-party servicer, it was much easier. The other piece of the question, yeah.
I was going to say the payoff. Did you want? So the event of a payoff, which is interesting, and the best way to look at it is that, I'm going to receive the next 96 payments, which means there's 80 payments after that. At any given time, if the note pays off, I'm entitled to the present value of whatever my payments are. So let's just say that it paid off the second day I bought it. I'm entitled to the present value of 96 payments. They're entitled to the present value of the 80 payments. And there's always an amortization behind the schedule, behind the scene, that you can see at any given time. Whatever payment number, if it's payment number 27, you can see how much I would get paid. You would see how much they would get paid, and you would see the overall balance of what the seller owes.
So if on that, if you bought this one like we're looking at here, and you bought it for $47,000, and 2 payments in, it pays off, you're entitled to the difference of what you received in the $47,000. So maybe it's $45,000 that you're owed as your entitlement balance.
It'd actually be a little bit more, because we're buying whatever balance we bought. So we may be paying $47,000 to purchase. I don't know what the number is.
So there's actually, it's a very good question you're asking, because there are 2 ways to calculate partials. One would be the way you mentioned, the $47,615 at 13%, and that's best when you're selling a partial. And then there's another way to do it where you present value the payments at the note rate, and it builds in some discount. So there's 2 different types of partial documents and 2 different ways to run the amortizations. And so those are both strategies. That's why it's so important to understand it up front. But again, the documents and the amortization schedules that get attached to the documents would show everybody, like Fred mentioned, who gets paid what when.
Yeah, so we do that in the partials masterclass, because we talk about, okay, if you're going to be the buyer, here's the set of documents you want to use. If you're going to be the seller, here's the set of documents you want to use. It's nothing shady. It's just which one's more to your advantage, and the other person can negotiate as well.
So you cover both of these, and you cover the different strategies and angles. That's great. You mentioned third-party servicers. There's a lot of servicers out there. Can I go just get any third-party servicer, or is there some you're like, hey, there's a few that do this, and then there's always the cream of the crop, and the one who like, look, this they invented the game. This is the person I go with. Is that the thing, or can I just pick anybody?
I think you want to pick somebody who's got some experience at this, and there are some out there. And when we do our Best of Notes contest, we do that every fall. People get to vote on who the Best of Notes servicers are, and so there's a good list on our website of potential candidates.
Yeah, if you go to noteinvestor.com/best of notes, every category, not just servicers, but we talk about attorneys and appraisers and all sorts of stuff.
Oh wait,
Paperstac.
Multiple and note listing sites like Paperstack. You guys were voted best note listing site last year, so congrats to
that. So it's a good
Thank
place
you.
to start. And those ones that are on the top of the list on the servicer part are definitely going to be doing partial.
So doesn't it usually, if you're buying the partial, usually servicing doesn't switch over, does it? It stays where it's at. So that would be the seller would have
maybe they're
optional.
It's optional.
It's easier to keep it where it's at. It's always easier. So just make sure that they will service partial.
all right. Let's keep moving on. What do you guys? I'm
All right. So
learning free.
Well, now we're going to talk about buying all the payments and selling a partial. So we could buy all 176 payments for that $68,430 that we talked about. And if I can sell the next 144 payments for the same $68,430, I just created a cash flow in the future of 32 payments of $800 on the back end, because I bought 176 for $68,000. I just need to find somebody who will buy 144 for the same price. They're going to earn a little bit less yield, but I found them a deal. It's all underwritten and ready to go. And so what's the return on that? It's actually infinite, because if you get the same money back that you put in and you keep payments out in the future, you actually need to put $1 in your calculator to figure out what your return is, because it's really infinite. It's making money on no money left in the deal.
That's awesome.
If you're listening to this and you can't see the screen, if you're listening on the podcast, let me just put it this way, because it's my favorite way to put what the buy, full, sell, partial is. If I buy a pumpkin pie for $100 and I sell half of that pie to Brett for $100, I have $100 and free half a pie.
That's awesome.
There you go. That's what buying a full, selling a partial is.
Can I ask a question? Let's say we bought that same pumpkin pie for $100, and I talked Brett into buying half that pumpkin pie for $120. Can I make a little bit more on that? And then so I'm going to have that half of the pie at the end, and I'm going to make some money up front?
It better be a good pie.
It's already infinite. So we'll have deals that we do that will actually do that. We'll actually sell, the partial for even more than we paid for it. So now I not only made money now, I also have, potentially money later as well.
You guys must be reading our mind, because that's the next
deal.
Maybe you're a good negotiator. I can't wait to dive in. If you're a really good negotiator, or you find somebody in a situation like, look, I need money today. I'll take this for it. And it seemed like it would set that up, but let's go, keep going.
Yeah, look, it's nothing squirrely. I mean, you're the one that found the deal, you're the one that did all that, and sometimes some people are happy going, look, maybe you're earning 12% of the note, and someone's like, hey, look, I'm just trying to make 8 and sleep at night, and you're like, okay, well then buy this partial. So yeah.
Well, and you are getting you compensated, as Fred mentioned, for finding the deal, sourcing the deal, performing the due diligence, getting your title, getting your BPO, checking it out with an attorney, all those different things. So it's just the same way as anything. Is if somebody they want to do DIY, or they want to work with a professional that does all that legwork for them.
So let's look at one more. We're going to look at one more deal, one more twist on that.
Also, sometimes people. They say, well, you tell them like, look, I'm getting paid for sourcing this deal. And they're like, well, that's a lot of money to get sourced this deal. They're like, yeah, but I had to go through 30 deals to get this one deal. And so I'm not recovering any of the cost I spent to outlay on the other 30 deals. It just didn't work out. So if it's a fair deal now, it's a fair deal. That's the way I can always look at things. It's like, hey, if this is a good deal for you, it's a good deal.
It's a difficult one to explain to people sometimes. I tried to explain to somebody the other day, like someone's like, well, this ambulance ride cost me a lot of money. You're not spending the money for the ambulance ride. You're spending for the money for the other 29 days they sat around not needing to drive anybody.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
So this is another different example that we'll just go through kind of quickly. Just shows exactly what you were talking about. It is a property that was in Dallas, Texas, and it sold for $60,000 with $6,000 down. And this was a few years back, but the partial recently paid off. That's why it's such a great example, because it shows the power over time. So the seller carried back $54,000 at 11.5, so a much higher interest rate for 30 years at 534.76. And we bought the full note, and then we sold the partial. And we, as you mentioned, sold the partial for more than we bought the note. So here's kind of how the numbers broke down.
Yeah, so we bought the full note for $47,500, and then after 2 payments were made, we sold a partial, and we sold the next 279 months for $51,000. So you can say with the 51, we already made more than we paid for it. We got 2 payments, plus we got 51 minus 47.5. So our return on that is 11.7.
Well, the investor's
return is 11.7. We have too much in it now. We're the negative deal. So the investors are earning 11.7 on their money, which is a great investment. And they didn't do anything other than put up money. But we net $3,500 now
up front, and we kept 79 payments on the back end. So we made some money at closing, and we kept 79 payments on the back end because we only sold 279 out of 358 that were left. So this one, you're like, well, how did that one work out?
And this is what Rick was saying earlier about selling the pumpkin pie for even more money. And we did. We netted money, but here's what happened. It didn't go the full distance. They paid off.
Yeah, so this one went a while, and it paid off in 18 years. So 18 years later, this note paid off, and we ended up receiving a check for our remainder share. We didn't get the payments like we were anticipating, and a lot of times these do pay off early. So we received our portion of the remainder, which was just over $17,000. So we made a little bit of money up front, just kind of an average fee, but because we understood how to run a calculator and do time value of money, we were able to build some residual income into the deal, and the servicer sent us a check for that $17,000 18 years later.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
And you, again, that one breaks the calculator because you didn't have anything in the deal. You were actually that one shatters it because you had already made $3,500, which you talk about $1,500 is great. getting a couple $3,500 paychecks a month, that's good. That's good money for people.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah, and you can't do it on every deal. I mean, look, a lot of deals don't work out. There's either not the spread there's not the, it just doesn't make sense. You can't do that on every deal, but we definitely look for deals where we can buy a full and sell a partial.
If you see enough, and that's kind of the thing, is seeing enough volume, right? It's you got to look at a lot of rocks until you find the gemstone you're looking for. But if you know what you're looking for, you're trained to analyze it. I think that's the key. You could go out there in a whole field full of rocks and not know what the hell you're looking for. But if you've been go through the proper training, that's really the key. And I think for me, doing the partial play, it's just another tool, a powerful tool, but it's a tool that's in your debt buying toolbox. That you're like, hey, there's different thing or different tools for each asset or each deal that comes through. You just got to know which one do I use.
I think that's a really, really good point as far as the tools. So, if you have a group of people that don't know all the tools on there, so a lot of people say, well, the most I want in this property is an 80 ITV. And so everybody's going, let's just say that if they offer an 80 ITV, that's just a huge discount to the seller. And everybody keeps going, well, I'll buy the full for, $80,000, $80,000. And then somebody comes along and says, well, you know what, I'll buy the next 200 payments for $80,000 and you can keep the last 100 payments. That's a game changer in their mind what it is. But if people don't know the tools to use, then they're left on the sidelines without it. I always think of like things like partials and buy, sell, full and stuff like that. It's like you've got, note buying is you've got to have this toolbox, and you may not go to that tool very often, like a split payment partial where you split a payment instead of splitting, that. You may not go to it very often, but if you're listening to the seller and the needs is, well, I really need this money now, but I also need to keep some cash flow. And I see a note that is over $1,000 a month, and that's usually the benchmark of what I'm looking for, because you don't want to split like a $300 payment. But if it's a note that has over $1,000 a month, I can split the payment. Right. And maybe I buy 500 and they keep 500 every month.
Yeah, that comes with a caveat, and that caveat is you want to be careful that you work with an attorney that understands the documents and that you're not creating a security, because we want to keep the note and mortgage and note and deed of trust not being a security. So if you get into doing this, you got to learn the ins and outs and make sure you work.
Yeah, I'm just talking about buying from the seller. I'm not talking about selling a split.
Yeah, and there's institutional investors out there that you can sell the partials to as well. And so it's Fred mentioned, it's a very powerful tool. And so, like you guys said, you can't do it on every deal, but I'll tell you some of the best deals you can do it on. The deals that you're creating your own notes, right? Where you're buying some real estate and you don't have as much into it. It's not a retail deal, right? You bought some real estate wholesale maybe, and now you've sold it with seller financing, and so you're in it a low dollar amount. So you really just need to sell enough to get back what's invested, maybe enough money to recoup to go to the next deal, and now you can keep what your profit in there working at interest, because where else are you going to get these kind of interest? Yeah, I know a CD will pay you 5, but wouldn't you rather have 10, 11, 12 secured by real estate? So you can keep some money in the deal, but get enough money to go on to the next deal. And I think for people who either own notes or own real estate and are creating notes, they are in a really great position to take advantage of this strategy.
Yeah,
I think the flippers in the last 10 years really learned how much money they were leaving on the table by having to take cash dollars, as opposed to maybe create a first and a second simultaneously and then carry back the second for themselves, which had more profit in it, and take the first and get their money out of it,
Yeah, and Fred's mention of the first and the second, you can do the same thing with the first and the second scenarios. So that's sometimes cleaner for some people because they don't, the partial document's a little confusing to them. So if you're creating it up front, you can use the same strategies. It's just, if you're buying a note and it's only a first, you can't go back in time and recreate those documents. So this is a strategy to use on all those other deals.
Yeah, I think you both said two great points there. One is, Tracy, you said like this is perfect for if you're generating your own your own owner finance stuff, but because you obviously know what's going on, you know what you can do, you can kind of structure everything from the time you're even buying the real estate with this in mind as that strategy. But then Fred said something before that I thought was spot on. It's that when you're deciding what tool, so much of it is predicated on the story and listening. And you said listen to what they need. And a lot of times people go into negotiations just saying, well, this is what I'm doing. And if you stop and sit and listen, the whole partial game and then really the debt structure and buying debt in general, you'll know which tools to use once you become very familiar with them. Once you go through proper training, you learn that stuff, you'll learn to listen. Do you guys cover that kind of stuff in your training? Like, hey, listen to what they're saying. It's so important that it's not, a lot of people just say, here's the calculator. You have to know how to work the calculator. You better know how to do arithmetic. But really, there's that next level of training, which is application and learning. I feel like you guys probably do that.
We do. We cover a lot of that. Now I'm starting to feel like the old guy with a lot of analogies. But it's like, you take your car to a mechanic and like, they've got a million tools, but they don't know which tool to grab until they know what the problem is.
Right.
We feel on note investing that you just don't know what tool, what way to buy a note. You're solving a problem. At the end of the day, we're solving a problem. Someone doesn't want the note, they want money. And it's never about the money, it's about what the money will get them. And we talk about that a lot when we're talking about negotiations. If I give you $1 million and you can't do anything with it, you sit in the room with it, it doesn't do you any good. You're using that money towards something. So we talk a lot about that. We cover all of it, but we talk a lot about, that's how we start the deal. We've got a million different ways we can buy notes. And it's fun to watch the industry go through all these evolutions because we've done it for so long that they'll discover like, oh, partials, that's new. No, it's been around for a million years.
Well, maybe not a million.
First and a second, it's been around for, several hundred years, whatever it may be. So it's just what dictates that is why are they selling? How are you going to solve the problem?
That's fantastic. It sounds like people are probably going to want to sign up, and you say it's in the spring and the fall. September, I think, starts the beginning of the fall. Are you guys opening up your doors soon to start sending people in? Or?
We will in November.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we're going to do it at the same week that Note Expo is. I think is when we're going to do it.
Fantastic.
The week of the master class we're going to do first. But if someone sends us an email, we'll make sure they get on the list to be notified when we open up the doors.
And if they want to see the replay, some of this, the Lunch and Learn series, they go to noteinvestor.com/101, so 101. That's a couple of free ebooks. And when you download those ebooks, you'll actually see our church note, which is one of our favorite partial deals where we bought a full and sold a partial on a building being used as a church.
Oh, wow.
So that was a fun story. That's in there too. So that would be noteinvestor.com/101.
Spoiler alert, it went well. Nobody wants to
How many people do you guys let in November? Is there like a cap, like 100 people, or do you guys just keep it open, whoever signs up in that time frame?
It depends on how many are there. So over the years, it's gotten bigger because more people stay and stay a long time. So
200, 250.
We try to, that's how many people total we like. So the thing about it is, so whatever gap is in there, which is usually not as many as people would hope, but the difference is that we don't outsource any of our membership. We don't have other people doing videos. We don't have other people manning a help desk. So if you send in a help desk ticket about a deal, it's one of us.
Oh, wow.
That's it. So that's why it's capped. I mean, I know we could do more if we brought some people on. There's some great people in the industry. It's kind of the way we've always done it.
Quality of life, man. You got to have a quality of life outside of the note space, and I would imagine, which keeps it nice, right? It keeps it tight. It keeps it small. You know what you're getting. It's predictable. I haven't been in it, but how many videos do you guys have in there? Do you guys know?
If I was to guess, if you take all the master classes, all the webinars, and then all the actual just trainings, there's probably close to 500-600 videos.
500 or 600 videos.
But don't be alarmed by that's a lot.
I mean,
it is a lot.
Even the partial courses.
But it's a lot. But when you look at it and you go, $97. You can find $97 anywhere, and it's like you're not something where it's like I don't have to outlay $3 or $4 grand. It's $97. I can digest it. If I want to pause it, I can pause it, or if I want to stop it at any time, it's like, hey, I'm not holding your feet to the fire. There's just so much there that it's such what a huge value. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that have been through other programs or currently in other programs that come on board and they're just like, I'm in, just either for the monthly or the ability to go over a deal or pick our brain. We have people that are very new to people that are like stupid levels of experience that we're like, wow, we're honored that you're here and you want our opinion on something. So it's enjoyable. And yeah, we could charge more or have more people, but we just wanted it something that it was a little bit of a give back initially on there, and we just wanted something to be a no-brainer. Going, look, if you want to be in this industry, here it is. It's which is why we only make it available twice a year.
That's cool.
Great stuff.
That's cool.
Awesome. Well, people want to get in touch with you, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll put some links to the bottom.
In the links in the show notes. Any last words of advice, words of wisdom that you want to give to
I love the no business. It's been good to us. I know it's been good to you guys. I mean, there's new advancements coming on all the time. I mean, look at you guys creating the listing platform. It makes it very accessible to people. We have new due diligence tools that are out there. So it's a business that survives the test of time, and it's also something that grows and you can take advantage of the new resources that are out there. And I know people get overwhelmed, and I think that you just got to pull it back and use step-by-step processes. That's why we're so big on using checklists, because it can feel overwhelming, but it's really something you know. If you bought or sold a house, you understand notes, because that's how everybody funds those deals. So it's really just learning how to get on the other side of the calculator. So don't be afraid to jump in and just do your homework and work with people and platforms that'll help you along the way like you guys do.
Yeah, I don't know another industry that works in a good or a bad economy. The only thing that changes is who's selling us notes. In a good economy, people are selling notes because they're investing and going on other things, are bigger, better. In a bad economy, people are selling their notes because they need to. So we've seen it over 30 years. We've seen the cycles. It's just a different note buyer. I don't know another industry where everybody wins. The person selling a note is trying to get a lump sum of cash. They get a lump sum of cash. If you're an investor, you get to invest in something at a better rate than you normally do, and you have the flexibility of partials or selling partials, whatever it might be. So it's interesting. Trust me, I have a short attention span. So the fact I've been in this industry for 30 years.
You mentioned cycles. Do you have any thoughts on, or where you feel like, you've been doing it 30 years, where we are in this cycle? Or is the pendulum swinging? It doesn't feel like we're way out to the one side or the other. It kind of feels like we're in the middle, in a transition from one phase to the other.
I would say that that's accurate. We kind of wait and see, because things have happened differently, but everybody's all up in arms about higher interest rates, I know, but they're really back to an average. If you look at the average mortgage loan rate in the last 30 years, it is about that 7.7%. From a note buying side, we don't mind rates being higher, right? Because we like earning higher interest.
Right.
However, I understand that we have an affordability issue in our country, and that's why those higher interest rates are hitting so hard. And so, you look at the pendulum, and if we have delinquencies on mortgages, that's when I think we'll see an actual shift the other way. But right now, mortgage delinquencies are overall, in general, still low compared to what they were after 2008.
Yeah.
And they predict that those delinquencies will stay relatively low as long as people stay employed. So I think, we are watching that employment number, right?
Yeah,
right.
Sure. Fair enough. All right, guys. Thank you so much for giving us, absolute nuggets of gold. This one's going to be one of the...
This one I have to watch over and over again.
This is...
There's a lot there. That was good.
So that's it for this episode of the Paperstac podcast. Really appreciate Fred and Tracy Rewey coming on and sharing all their knowledge. Definitely check out the show notes and, mark your calendars for November so you can get into this, into their universe, into their ecosystem, and start soaking up their knowledge. And it sounds like you're going to be at Note Expo, so...
We'll be
definitely, if you can, get out to Note Expo, see Eddie Speed, Fred, Tracy will be there, and definitely a great time and a great event to go meet with people, not just people starting in the industry, really industry experts that are going to be there, and it's just a wealth of knowledge that I always take away from that. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.